A white envelope rests on a glass table. Hands tremble slightly as they pick it up. A racing heart echoes like an ancient war drum. Inside that envelope, a secret that would destroy 2 entire families. But how did it all begin? How would a moment of desperation turn into a plot that would expose the most brutal truth about those we should trust with our lives? Rewind. The story begins in a modern fertility clinic in Lagos, where sterile white walls reflected the emptiness Amara carried inside. At 33, with silky black hair and eyes that once sparkled with hope, she now sat across from the doctor with tears streaming down her face. His clinical words hit like a sledgehammer. Secondary infertility. The eggs are severely compromised. The probability of natural pregnancy is virtually zero. Virtually zero. Those 3 words became her death sentence. Not physical death, but the death of everything she'd been told defined her worth as a woman. In her community, childlessness wasn't just unfortunate, it was shameful. A woman without children was incomplete, broken, less than. Amara had felt this weight her entire life, listening to aunts whisper about women who couldn't have babies, watching relatives exchange knowing looks of pity and judgment. And now it was her. Now it was her own story of shame. She walked out of that clinic like a ghost. Her whole body felt heavier, as if gravity had suddenly doubled. In the parking lot, Tundi sat in their car. He didn't need her to say anything. He read it in her face. When he closed his eyes for just 1 second, Amara saw the marriage crumbling, felt the questions that would destroy them both, witnessed the unspoken resentment that was about to poison everything they'd built. That night, she lay in bed and didn't sleep. She just stared at the ceiling, imagining the children she would never have, the boys she wouldn't play with, the daughters whose hair she wouldn't braid on the morning of their weddings, the house that would remain silent, empty, condemned. But then, 3 weeks later, the phone rang. The voice on the other end was her younger sister, Kemi. Not a casual call, something urgent, almost frantic. Kemi had moved to Toronto 2 years ago, escaping the weight of family expectations and cultural judgment. But now, something had shifted. Desperation crept into every word. Amara, I need to talk to you. In person, it's important. Kemi was back in Lagos within a week. When she arrived, the sisters embraced, but Kemi's hug was tense, calculated. She had something to propose, something that would change everything. They sat on the leather sofa their parents had given as a wedding gift, and Kemi took Amara's hands. I know you're hurting. Mom told me about the diagnosis, but listen, I might have a way out of this. Amara turned to look her in the eyes. A solution? That word seemed impossible. Impossible, and at the same time, tempting. I'm pregnant, Kemi said. Her hands lightly touched her belly. With twins, a boy and a girl, and I have a plan. A plan that will change everything for you. Amara's heart pounded. Her hands eagerly grasped her sister's. What? What plan, Kemi? Tell me. Kemi took a deep breath. Her eyes already showed a determination Amara recognized. It was the same expression Kemi used as a child, when she pretended to be the savior of impossible situations. But this time, she wasn't pretending. When the babies are born, they're yours, officially. We'll do it through legal channels, family adoption. You and Tunda will raise them. You'll be their mother. I'll go back to my life in Toronto. It's just transferring custody, transferring everything. The courts allow it. It happens all the time. Amara felt as if the ground disappeared beneath her feet. It was as if someone was offering water in the desert after days of dying from thirst. It was a miracle. It was hope. It was everything she had lost in that cold doctor's office. You would do that? Really? You would give your children to me? Kemi's smile didn't reach her eyes. Something darker lurked behind it. A hunger, a desperation, an obsession disguised as sacrifice. Yes, completely. But you need to understand something. Once they're yours, there's no changing your mind. No temporary arrangement. No shared custody. They're yours forever. 100%. Do you understand that? In that moment, Amara wasn't thinking about the whys. She wasn't asking the questions she should have asked. Her mind was spinning with only one thing. Children. Finally children. The following months passed in a blur of restored hope. Amara bought tiny clothes. She prepared 2 cribs with soft mattresses and mobiles that danced at the slightest touch of air. She talked to her belly, her sister's belly, as if it were her own. Kemi traveled home occasionally, and on those occasions, her sister went to medical appointments. Everything seemed normal. Everything seemed right. But there were moments when Amara caught Kemi looking at her strangely, as if she were calculating something, as if a game was being played, and Amara was the last to discover the rules. Then the big day arrived. The birth happened in the dark hours of night. Kemi's contractions started, and they rushed to the hospital. Hours later, 2 voices cried out, a boy and a girl, perfect, real, alive. When Amara held her son, because he was hers now, something broke open inside her. The love was primal, overwhelming, almost too much to bear. Her hands shook as she wrapped him in the pale pink blanket she'd chosen months ago. Tears blurred her vision. "Hi, baby," she whispered through tears. "Welcome home, my love. You're mine. You'll always be mine." But then came day 3, 48 hours of bliss. 2 days of believing in miracles. Then Kemi walked in, and she wasn't the sister Amara knew anymore. Her eyes were different. Cold, determined, predatory. "Amara, I need you to pack the children's things. Tonight. Everything." "What?" "Kemi, what are you talking about?" "I'm talking about my children, my babies. We're leaving, tomorrow, going back to Toronto. They're coming with me." The room tilted. The world spun. "No, you can't. Watch me." Amara's world collapsed. Not gradually, completely, totally, like a dynamited building falling in on itself. "You can't do this," Amara said, her voice breaking. "You promised. You said they would be ours. You said there was no turning back." "I lied," Kemi said. "I needed you to believe the story. Because if you'd questioned it, if you'd pushed back even once, everything would have fallen apart before these babies were even born." "What truth? What is the truth, Kemi? Why are you doing this?" But Kemi didn't answer. She just packed clothes into bags. She just took her children, because they were hers now, weren't they? And placed them in the car seats she had brought with her. Amara watched her drive away, watched the car disappear into the streets of Lagos, watched the life she had imagined for months simply vanish. And in that moment, a single question burned in her mind. Why? Why had Kemi done all this? What was the secret she had been keeping? What could have motivated her to deceive her own sister so cruelly? The answer was waiting. But it would have to wait for the DNA test that would reveal the most devastating truth of all. A truth that would not only destroy Amara and Tunde, but would shake the foundations of the entire family. But that revelation was still to come. For now, all Amara had was the pain. All she had was the question, and the desperate need to find that white envelope, to unlock that secret, to finally understand what had happened. Segment 2. The deepening separation. The family gathering continued, but Amara felt like a ghost in that crowded room. Sitting in the corner, she watched the twins playing on the rug. They weren't yet 2 years old, still babies who knew their mother by touch, by smell, by voice. And that day, as always, they looked at her. Zainab's little eyes lit up. Jamal was already starting to crawl towards her, but Kemi, who watched every move, quickly walked between them. With a firm gesture, she placed herself in front of the twins, blocking their path. "No, my children," Kemi said, her voice too sweet to be true. "Auntie Amara is too busy to be near you right now." Amara felt her heart clench. "Auntie? Auntie?" Kemi turned to their mother, to the aunts and uncles, to the cousins who filled the house. Her smile was perfect. Her posture was that of a dedicated mother. "Amara agreed to all of this," she said, her voice low enough for only a few to hear, but strategically positioned so that most would catch the words in the air. She simply couldn't handle motherhood. The twins deserved someone strong enough. There was a silence. The kind of silence that is worse than any criticism. That silence that turns a room full of people into a judging crowd. Amara lowered her head. She couldn't cry. She couldn't defend herself. Because any protest would seem exactly what Kemi had described. Weakness. The twins cried, reaching out their arms for their mother as Kemi took them to another room. In the following weeks, Amara's life began to unravel. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't explicit. It was worse than that. It was gradual. It was public. It was inescapable. She lost her job 2 days after the meeting at her mother's house. Her boss, Chisholm, a man who had respected her work for 3 years, suddenly stopped assigning her to projects, stopped talking to her during meetings, stopped greeting her in the morning. A week later, he called her into his office. "The structure is changing," he said, avoiding her gaze. "Your services are no longer needed." Amara knew the truth. Chisholm's mother was a cousin of one of Kemi's cousins. The news had traveled. The narrative had spread like wildfire. Amara abandoned her children. Amara was not a good mother. Amara was too selfish to be a mother. Women at the market would see her and turn away. Kids pointed, whispered, asked their mothers why that woman didn't want her own babies. At church, old friends suddenly had errands to run when she approached. Her neighbor, Neka, who used to borrow eggs and sugar, now stared at her with pure disgust. "You should be ashamed," Neka said one afternoon, hanging laundry on the line. "Those poor children. A mother who just gave up on them. What kind of woman does that?" Amara didn't respond. She had learned there was no answer that could change minds that were already made up. Her money began to run out. No job, no family support, isolated. She looked for work, but her name had become toxic. It's one thing to be single and childless. It's one thing to be a widow. But to be the woman who gave away her twin children, that was incomprehensible. That was a moral stain no one wanted near them. Amara cut costs. She moved to a smaller apartment in a more distant neighborhood. She sold small handicrafts on the streets. She did odd jobs to survive. But inside, she died a little each day knowing her children were only a few miles away, and she couldn't touch them. 3 months later, Amara couldn't bear it anymore. There was an emptiness inside her that grew each night. The nightmares were worse than the empty days. She dreamed of the twins calling for her, their voices growing more distant. She couldn't wait any longer. She needed to see her children. She needed to hug them. She walked to Kemi's house on a Thursday afternoon. Her heart pounded as she climbed the porch steps. Her fingers trembled as she rang the doorbell. Kemi opened the door. Her face changed instantly, not with surprise, with fury. "What are you doing here?" Kemi asked, her voice like a blade. "I want to see the twins," Amara said, her voice breaking. "I just want just a few minutes. They are my children, Kemi. I didn't give them up. You never what?" Kemi opened the door wider, her body blocking the entrance. "You never loved them? You never wanted them? Everyone in the community knows the truth about you, Amara. Everyone knows you were incapable." "That's not the truth. You know exactly what you did." "I didn't do anything!" Kemi's scream echoed down the street, raw and wild. "You're the one who gave them up. You decided you couldn't handle motherhood. You walked away! And now you want to come back and ruin everything I've built? Everything these children know? My children." Those 2 words made Amara stop breathing. "They call me mother," Kemi continued, her face contorted with rage. "They sleep with me, wake up with me, look for me when they're scared. Do you think you can just come back now and claim what you abandoned? Kemi, please." "You are selfish," Kemi said, her voice dropping, becoming even more venomous. "A weak mother, a weak woman. And this entire community knows it. No one will support you. No one. You can disappear and no one will miss you." The door closed. It wasn't slammed shut. It closed slowly, deliberately, as Kemi looked into Amara's eyes. A gesture far crueler than any slap. Amara stumbled down the steps. She sat on the street, her entire body trembling. 2 days later, as Amara was styling hair at a client's house, a child handed her a note. It was a small handwritten note, folded in haste. "Amara, I need to talk to you. About the twins. Meet me at the cafe near the bus station. Tomorrow night. Come alone. Chike, Kemi's husband. The man who had signed the legal papers. The man who, technically, had as much responsibility for the twins as Kemi herself." Amara hadn't slept by the time the next dawn arrived. That night, she sat in the cafe, waiting. The place was discreet, not often frequented. Perfect for a conversation no one should overhear. Chike arrived 15 minutes late. He looked haunted. His eyes were bloodshot, his jaw clenched. He sat across from her but couldn't meet her gaze. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "I need to tell you something, and you need to listen." He kept looking over his shoulder. "Kemi, she's always wanted children. Since I've known her, it was everything to her. Her whole world revolved around having babies. Amara knew this. Everyone knew this. When she found out she couldn't have children," Chike continued, "when the doctors said her fertility was compromised, that it was almost impossible, she fell into despair." He finally looked at her. "She targeted you. On purpose. She knew you were desperate. She knew you were vulnerable raw from the infertility diagnosis. And she planned all of this, from the very beginning. Every word, every promise, every single thing. The words fell like stones into a deep well. You mean she—" Amara couldn't complete the sentence. "She invented everything," Chike said. "The pregnancy, the ultrasounds, the doctor visits, all fake. All designed so she could take your babies and convince everyone they were biologically hers." The room spun. Amara's vision blurred. "But there's more," Chike said, and something in his voice changed. There was fear now. Genuine fear. "There's something you need to know about the twins. Something Kemi is keeping secret. Something that—" He stopped abruptly. His eyes widened. He stood up, his whole body tense. "I can't anymore," he whispered. "I've already said too much. If she finds out it was me, if she knows I told you—" "Chike, wait! You have to tell me. What's going on with the twins? What is Kemi hiding?" But Chike was already pulling away, walking quickly towards the cafe door. "You need to get the twins back," he said, looking back one last time. "At any cost, find the truth. Get the test. Then you'll know everything." And he disappeared into the night. Amara was left alone, with more questions than answers. But for the first time in months, she felt something other than despair. She felt hope, and she also felt fear, because Chike was afraid, and his fear was contagious. There was a bigger secret hidden within this family, a secret people were afraid to reveal, a secret that could destroy everyone. And the twins were at the heart of this mystery. The next morning, Amara woke with a determination she hadn't felt in years. Chike's words echoed in her mind, but she couldn't simply believe them without proof. The fertility clinic where Kemi supposedly underwent treatment all these years was Clinica Adekunle, the most renowned in Lagos. If there was any truth to this story, the answers would be there. She drove to the clinic in the Ikoyi neighborhood, her heart pounding. When she entered, the cold air conditioning contrasted with the heat she felt inside. The receptionist looked up as Amara approached. "Hello, my name is Amara Okonkwo. My sister Kemi Okonkwo was a patient here for several years. I need information about her treatment records." The receptionist blinked. "I'm sorry, but that's confidential. You would have to come back with your sister." Amara took a deep breath. She knew this wouldn't be easy, so she offered a small but necessary lie. "She's very ill in the hospital. The doctors need to know her full history of fertility treatments before proceeding with surgery. It's a matter of health." The receptionist hesitated. Amara saw the conflict in the woman's eyes. Compassion versus protocol. After a few minutes, she stood up. "Let me consult the manager." 20 minutes later, Amara was sitting in Dr. Adekunle's office, the clinic's founder himself. He was an elderly, kind man with round glasses and professional manners. He leafed through a file while Amara waited, her heart racing. Dr. Adekunle took off his glasses. "Your sister Kemi was diagnosed with severe permanent infertility 5 years ago. Bilateral tubal blockage. She was told categorically that natural pregnancy was impossible, and she accepted that verdict. She never came back, never sought treatment, never tried anything." Amara's world stopped for a moment. 5 years. Chike was telling the truth. Kemi lied about everything. "Are you sure?" Amara asked, her voice trembling. "Without question. I've had these records since 2019, Kemi knew. She had proof she was infertile, and she never looked back." Amara walked out of that clinic like a woman in shock. The Lagos streets blurred. The realization crashed over her. Chike was telling the truth, which meant Kemi had staged everything. But why? How did she get the twins if she couldn't have children? What was this elaborate lie really about? When she arrived home, Amara called her eldest uncle, Uncle Adebare, who was a figure of authority in the family. She found him in his furniture studio, working on an intricate piece of wood. "Uncle, I need to talk to you about something very important. It's about Kemi and the twins." "I found out that—" Uncle Adebare stopped mid-hammer. His face hardened into something cold. "Amara, stop. Don't say another word. What you're doing is dangerous." "But uncle, I have proof. I don't want proof." His voice boomed through the studio, bouncing off the wood shavings. "Those children are Kemi's. They're happy. They're safe. Why do you want to destroy that? Why would you tear this family apart? Because it's the truth." "The truth? The truth is overrated." He turned his back to her. "Some truths do more damage than good. Leave this alone, Amara." He turned his back on her, returning to his work. Amara felt anger and helplessness burn in her chest. Was silence more important than truth? Was peace more valuable than honesty? She left there with more questions than answers. But there was one person in the family who had always listened to her. Her grandmother-in-law, Aunt Zola. An 83-year-old woman who had lived long enough to see through facades and lies. Amara found her in the family backyard, tending to her flowers. Aunt Zola had wrinkled, earth-stained hands, but her eyes still shone with wisdom. "Dear Amara, you look troubled," Aunt Zola said, observing her. "Aunt, can I talk to you in private? It's about Kemi." Aunt Zola put her spade aside and led Amara to a bench at the back of the yard, away from prying ears. "Tell me what you found," Aunt Zola said. She didn't ask questions. She didn't seem surprised. Amara told her everything. Chike's confession, the clinic records. Dr. Adekunle confirming that Kemi had always been infertile. Aunt Zola sat beside her the whole time, her weathered face unmoving. When Amara finished, Aunt Zola just nodded slowly. "You're smart, child. Too smart. And brave asking questions when the world tells you to stay silent." "How did you know?" Amara asked. "You knew something, didn't you?" "I've suspected for years." Aunt Zola's voice was quiet, heavy with history. "But your family is bound by something darker than suspicion. We're trapped by greed, Amara. Your grandfather created a curse that has poisoned this family for generations." "A curse? Not supernatural human curse is far worse." Aunt Zola squeezed her hand. "When your grandfather wrote his will, he made it clear. Whoever had the first grandchild would inherit everything. The house, the land, the money, all of it. To the first child born." Amara felt her heart race. And Kemi. Kemi and her mother realized she couldn't have children biologically. But there was a way. There were twins being offered for adoption. Daughters of a young mother from a village in Benin who couldn't care for them. The documentation was altered. Papers were forged. Kemi became the biological mother of these children. "My God," Amara breathed. "You mean Kemi planned all this?" "The twins aren't her daughters at all?" "They are her daughters in every way that matters now," Aunt Zola said. "But biologically? No. Kemi adopted them and forged the birth certificates to gain the inheritance. Your mother helped her. Your father knew, but he fulfilled his duty as a husband and father. And all of us. We closed our eyes because peace was more important than truth. Tears filled Amara's eyes. Years of shame, years of guilt, all of it engineered. All of it orchestrated for money, for inheritance. Those innocent children pawns in a family's greed. Why tell me this now? Amara whispered. Because you had the courage to ask. Because you deserve the truth. But Amara? Aunt Zola paused. There's more. Something darker. Something you'll only find out when you do that DNA test. What? Amara asked, her body stiffening. Aunt Zola looked around, making sure no one was near. The twins. Their DNA will reveal something else. Something that changes everything. Something that will explain why Kemi was so desperate. Why she did all this. But I can't tell you. It's not safe. Aunt, please, Amara begged. Just tell me. But Aunt Zola shook her head firm. No. If I tell you, it puts you in danger. But when you have that DNA test done, everything clicks into place. You'll finally understand why Kemi orchestrated this entire lie. Why your mother helped her. Why your uncle wants you silent. All of it. It all makes sense when you know the truth about those children's DNA. Amara trembled. She'd uncovered one shocking secret, but clearly, there was something even worse hiding beneath it all. How do I get the DNA test? She asked. There are private clinics. You can do it without their consent, but it will cost money. Maybe a few thousand naira, and it will be quick. 3 to 5 days for the results. Amara took a deep breath. Her job as a teacher didn't pay much, but she had saved. And this was too important. I'll do it, she said, no matter the cost. I need to know the full truth. Aunt Zola squeezed her hand. You are brave, Amara. Your husband should have fought harder for you. But you, at least, you are fighting for yourself now. Take the test, and when you have the results, come back to me. Don't go to your mother. Don't go to Kemi. Come back to me first. Walking home that night, Amara felt the full weight of the conspiracy, the inheritance scheme, the lies, the forged documents, every detail calculated, every move planned, her entire life a stage play, and she'd been cast as the tragic heroine. But that was ending now. She would get the DNA test. She would uncover whatever dark secret Aunt Zola was protecting. She would find the truth, no matter what it cost. The lies had buried her long enough. It was time to dig them up and destroy them. Amara pulled out her phone and started searching for DNA labs in Lagos. There was a private clinic that did tests in 24 hours for a premium. She started calculating her salary, her savings, what she could borrow. For the first time in years, Amara felt control over her own life. She would not be a silent victim anymore. She would have answers, and nothing would stop her. Segment 4. The Plan and the Confrontation. Amara knew she couldn't wait any longer. Every day that passed was a day her children grew further from her. The DNA testing lab had confirmed just one sample, any sample, was enough to confirm the truth. Hair, saliva, even a thread of clothing was sufficient. The opportunity came when she received a call. Their mother had fallen. It wasn't serious, but serious enough that Kemi called her in a panic, asking Amara to help with the twins while she took their mother to the hospital. Amara felt her heart pound. It was the opening she needed. She drove to Kemi's house with her hands trembling on the steering wheel. Every red light was an eternity. When she arrived, Kemi rushed out, still putting on her shoes, and practically pushed the children into Amara's arms. Leah Tunde, be good with Aunt Amara, Kemi said, not even looking her sister in the eye. Mom called us. I'll be back in a few minutes. Amara didn't respond. She just nodded, her entire body on high alert. She had perhaps 30 minutes, maybe 40 if she was lucky. The twins led her to their room. A room that should have been hers, she thought bitterly. And Amara pretended to be interested in their toys while her mind raced. In the bathroom of the room, she saw it. Their comb, still tangled with golden hairs. Her hands trembled as she pulled a small plastic bag from her purse. She had planned this for weeks. She inserted a few strands of hair from each comb into separate, well-labeled bags. Read, Leah. Tunde. Tunde. Her own hair was already in a bag at home. Hair collected directly from her scalp, uncontaminated. Proof of her biological motherhood. Auntie, are you coming? Leah shouted from the living room. I'll be right there, Amara replied, her voice surprisingly steady despite her racing heart. She carefully put the bags in her purse, sealed them with tape, and left the bathroom. For the next 45 minutes, Amara sat with her children as they played. She watched them. Their eyes, their laughter, the way Tunde had a small mole on his ear, exactly like hers, as she had seen in photos from when she was 5. It was obvious, so obvious. When Kemi returned, she found Amara and the children playing hide-and-seek on the sofa. Everything seemed normal, perfect, hidden. Thank you, Kemi said, taking the children back. There was a different note in her voice. Suspicious? Relieved? Amara couldn't tell. 3 days later, Amara walked into the DNA testing lab. The receptionist took her samples with clinical professionalism. Amara heard the magic words, "You will have the results in 21 business days." 21 days. 21 days was an eternity. But days 1-7, the wait. The first day was practically unbearable. Amara drove home, sat on her bed, and simply waited. As if waiting could make time pass faster. It didn't work. She worked. Or at least she went to work. Her mind was elsewhere. Her colleagues avoided her as before. The humiliation from the community hadn't lessened. If anything, it had worsened. A woman accosted her at the market. "How can you walk around so freely after what you did to your children?" Amara didn't answer. She had learned that defense was presented as guilt. Nights were the worst. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, imagining the results. What would it show? Surely that she was the mother. Surely. But what if something went wrong? What if there was contamination in the samples? What if the lab made a mistake? She imagined conversations she would have with judges, with lawyers, with the police. She practiced arguments she would present to Kemi. She cried silently under her blankets, so her neighbors couldn't hear. On the 4th day, the community pushed her away even further. A women's meeting was happening next door. She saw the line of women arriving, saw when the conversation stopped as Amara walked past the door. One woman whispered something to the other. Both laughed. The laughter of someone else's humiliation. Amara kept walking. Her chin was held high. Her heart was broken. But there was one thing that sustained Amara through it all. Anger. Not blind anger. Cold anger. Focused anger. Anger that kept her awake at night, planning. Anger that gave her courage. On the 7th day, she did something she hadn't done in weeks. She went out with a friend, one of the few who had remained by her side. Her name was Zainab, and she had known Amara since primary school. "Are you feeling better?" Zainab asked as they walked through the park. "No," Amara said honestly. "But soon I will be." Zainab looked at her curiously but didn't press. She just held her hand. And in that moment, Amara felt the first spark of hope. She wasn't completely alone. Day 10, the confrontation. A week later, Amara had gathered more than just hope. She had gathered evidence. Through a cousin who worked in banking, she had obtained the transfer records, the inheritance transfers. The pattern was crystal clear. Kemi had moved approximately $150,000 from their father's inheritance funds to her own account in 3 months. The twins had received nothing. Amara copied every receipt, every transfer, every date. She built a timeline, and on the 10th day, she went to Kemi's house. This time, she didn't ask for permission. She rang the doorbell, rang it again. A 3rd time, Kemi opened the door, and her face changed when she saw who it was. "Amara," Kemi said, her voice sharp as broken glass. "What do you want?" "We have nothing to talk about. About the twins, about the inheritance, about everything." To Amara's surprise, Kemi stepped back. She left the door open. Perhaps there was a part of her that was tired of pretending. Or perhaps she simply underestimated her sister. Either way, Amara walked in. The living room was exactly as Amara remembered it. Expensive sofas, a large television, photos of the twins on every wall. Photos that should have included Amara, she thought with silent anger. But they didn't. "Speak!" Kemi demanded, her arms crossed defensively. Amara walked to the coffee table and spread out the documents. The transfers, the forged signatures, the clinic records. She didn't explain anything. Let Kemi read her own betrayal. Amara watched her sister's face drain of color. The moment the truth hit that Amara knew everything. The moment the mask cracked. "You had no right!" Kemi started. "I had every right," Amara cut her off. Her voice could have cut glass. "You didn't just steal my children. You stole their future. You forged documents. You manipulated a judge. You destroyed my name. You are a thief, Kemi, a criminal, and I have proof of everything." "You're alone in saying that," Kemi retorted, standing abruptly. "To the entire community, you are the woman who gave her children to her sister and disappeared. You are the woman whose daughter had to tell the school that her mother abandoned her. You are the woman no one trusts." The words were venom. Amara felt each one like a stab, but she didn't back down. "The DNA test results come in 11 days, Amara said quietly. "I'm going to prove those children are mine, and I'm going to bring you to justice." That's when she saw the real change in Kemi's face. Rage, pure, consuming, uncontrolled hatred. Kemi lunged forward. A glass flew off the table and shattered. "Those are my children," she screamed, pointing her finger at Amara like a weapon. "You can have all the DNA you want, but you'll never take them from me. Never! Do you understand? Never!" Her voice cracked like a whip through the house. Amara heard movement from the back. The twins stirring, one of them crying. But here's what's going to happen, Kemi hissed, her voice dropping to something worse than the scream, something lethal and cold. Even if your DNA test proves you're the biological mother, no judge in this country will give kids to a woman who abandoned them. The community believes I'm the mother. The law will too. And you'll lose. The silence that followed was absolute. I took care of them, Kemi continued. And now there was a note of obsession in her voice. I raised them. I loved them. You can't just show up years later and claim them because we have the same blood. They are mine. Amara felt her heart sink, because there was a dark logic to Kemi's words. There was truth in some of them. The community was against her. A mother who abandoned her children. How would a judge see her? And then something shifted inside Amara. Not doubt. Absolute clarity. They came from my body, Amara said quietly, dangerously calm. My blood, my DNA, my face lives in theirs. And no amount of lies, no community verdict, no legal manipulation will change that biological truth. Kemi lunged toward her, but Amara had already turned. She walked to the door. When I get those DNA results, Amara said, her hand on the door frame, everyone will know what you did, and you'll answer for all of it. She stepped outside. Behind her, a primal scream, the sound of something crashing, the twins wailing. Amara walked to her car without looking back, without flinching, without breaking. Teen winks, the result. 10 days later, Amara received an email. Subject, your DNA test is ready. Her heart stopped. She was at work when she read it. She simply walked out. Her boss yelled after her, but she didn't hear. She had one thing on her mind. The lab was a 20-minute drive from her work. Amara drove as if in a trance. Her body was in the car, but her mind was elsewhere. She thought of her first pregnancy, of how alive she had felt. So complete. She thought of the night she gave birth to Leah. Then Tunda, just 5 minutes later. Twins? Her babies. She remembered being forced to sign those papers. The tears. The desperation. The belief that she was doing the right thing. 18 years of silence. 18 years of lies that destroyed her. And now finally proof that those children were hers. Proof that she wasn't crazy. Proof that she was the victim of the most elaborate manipulation. She parked in front of the lab. Her lungs felt tight. She had to take a deep breath, twice, to be able to get out of the car. The receptionist knew her now. Result is here? Amara asked. Yes, here it is, the receptionist said, handing her a sealed envelope. Amara's hands shook as she took it. She didn't speak, didn't explain. She walked back to her car in a daze, got in, locked the door, sat there, stared at the white envelope like it might explode. 18 years. All that pain, all that shame, all those whispers and accusations. And now the truth was in her hands. She opened it slowly, carefully, as if the paper might tear. Her eyes read the first line once, twice, 3 times, as if repetition might change the meaning. Maternal match with Amara, 99.9%. Tears flooded her face. Not tears of joy, tears of vindication. Those were her children. She'd known it in her bones. But then the next line made her blood stop. Paternal match, DNA markers compatible with Chike Okafor. Probability of paternity, 99.8%. The paper fell from her hands. Chike, Kemi's husband. Not the uncle, the father. The car spun around her. Amara couldn't breathe. The pieces didn't fit. They couldn't fit, but they had to, because the DNA didn't lie. And then a memory surfaced, buried so deep she'd convinced herself it was a nightmare. That night, after her diagnosis, when she was broken and desperate. Kemi's house, a drink, Chike's gentle voice. This will help you feel better. Then fragments, darkness, a room, hands, pain, confusion, blankness. She'd woken alone. Clothes wrong, feeling violated but unable to name it. She told herself it was a bad dream, that she was confused, traumatized from the diagnosis. But now the truth was written in DNA. Her body had known the whole time, had carried that knowledge in every cell. And when her mind finally refused to remember, her flesh had kept the secret safe. Chike had raped her. Her knees buckled. She collapsed into the chair like a rag doll, clutching the document to her chest. Her hands trembled uncontrollably. Her breath came in gasps. But there was no one in the car with her. Just Amara, alone, holding the truth that rewrote her entire history. She'd been raped, and she'd been manipulated into giving up the children born from that assault. And her sister had orchestrated all of it. The first thing Amara did was look for Chike. He was under the hood of a car when she found him. His hands froze when he saw the document in hers. You know, Amara said quietly. It wasn't a question. He straightened up. His face crumpled. I know you do, Amara continued. You've been waiting for this moment. And then finally, he told her everything. Kemi's plan. How she'd wanted children so desperately that she decided to use Amara's fertility. How Chike was supposed to father the children, and somehow Kemi would keep them. How it was supposed to be a perfect solution. She got you drunk, Amara said flatly. Yes, and she got herself drunk. And she told you to. She made you rape me. Chike's face shattered. I didn't know what I was doing, Amara. I swear I didn't. I told you to stop, Amara said. Her voice was steel. I remember now. I told you to stop. Tears streamed down his face, but Amara had no mercy. When I got pregnant, Kemi panicked, she said, piecing it together. She realized I was stronger than she thought, that I'd never voluntarily give up my babies. So she invented the infertility lie, made me believe I'd asked her to take them. Forged documents, created a whole false narrative about my own life. Kemi hadn't just stolen her children, she'd stolen her identity, made Amara complicit in the crime, built a prison of shame so complete that Amara couldn't even see the bars. The rage that moved through Amara's body was different from anything she'd felt before. It was cold, precise, lethal. It was the fury of a woman who suddenly understood exactly what had been done to her, and exactly what she would do about it. Amara walked out of that workshop without another word. She didn't need Chike's confession. She had the DNA, she had proof of everything. Amara went straight to a lawyer's office, then to Zoya. And when she told her aunt everything she had discovered, not just about the children, not just about Chike, but about the entire plan, the entire orchestration, Kemi's absolute manipulation, even Zoya, who had survived decades in a world unsafe for women, took a deep breath. She raped you, Aunt Zola said, cutting through the shock. Through her husband. She orchestrated your rape. And I believed it was my fault, Amara whispered. Zola's eyes filled with a righteous fury that Amara had never seen before. We're bringing this to court. All of it. The rape. The forged documents. The inheritance fraud. Everything. Zola picked up her phone. The elders are gathering. And this time, the truth won't be whispered in corners. It'll be screamed from the rooftops. The wheels began to turn. Lawyers were contacted. Evidence was compiled. Chike agreed to testify. The DNA test results sat on the table like a bomb, ready to detonate decades of lies. The community gathering was announced as a family dispute resolution. What came next would be anything but typical. Amara walked in holding her evidence like a weapon. Not the desperate, broken woman who'd stood before these same people years ago. She was a mother, a survivor, a woman transformed by the terrible clarity of truth. And she was about to burn it all down. Segment 6, The Reckoning and Redemption. Duration, 10 minutes, 50 hours, 60 euro for 1,500 words. Night fell over the village as more than 50 people gathered in the great community hall. Candles illuminated the attentive faces of elders, neighbors, close relatives. The air was thick with expectation. Amara's case would be judged again, and this time, the truth would have its chance to speak. Kemi entered first. She'd dressed carefully traditional fabric, dignified posture, the picture of a devoted mother. She stood before the elders with absolute confidence. Honored elders, she began, her voice smooth and controlled. Amara has returned, bitter and broken, trying to destroy everything. I raised these children alone while she abandoned them. I gave them love, a home, stability. Now she wants to take that away out of pure jealousy. The elders nodded sympathetically. The crowd murmured agreement with Kemi's story. Amara's chest tightened. The same fear, the same judgment, the world still against her. But then something shifted. Amara stood, not with hesitation, with absolute certainty. She held up the DNA test result. The paper caught the light like a torch. Elders, I didn't come here for sympathy, Amara said, her voice cutting through the room. I came with proof. This test confirms these twins are my biological children. But it shows something else, something about who really fathered them. The room went silent. Kemi didn't just steal my children. She orchestrated my rape. She made her own husband assault me while I was vulnerable and broken. Then she forged documents to make me give up my babies. Everything you see, the abandonment story, the neglect, all of it, is a lie built on a crime. People leaned forward. The elders' faces hardened. This wasn't a custody dispute anymore. Amara showed the evidence. The phone records of her begging to see the twins. The forged adoption documents. The clinic records proving Kemi was infertile. Every piece of the manipulation laid bare. Kemi didn't just lie. She committed fraud. She orchestrated a sexual assault. She stole her sister's children. Kemi's face went white. Her carefully constructed facade crumbled. And Chike, Amara turned to him. He's going to tell you the truth, because the burden of her lies is finally too heavy to bear. Chike stood. His voice was broken when he spoke. It's true, all of it. Kemi planned everything. She got me drunk and made me. He couldn't finish. His tears did it for him. I assaulted Amara, at Kemi's direction, so she could steal her children and claim the inheritance. The hall erupted. Not in Kemi's defense. In outrage, Kemi tried to speak, to defend herself, but no one listened. Her mask was gone. What remained was a woman exposed a predator, a criminal, a monster wearing the face of a mother. The eldest elder rose to his feet. The others followed. Their judgment was swift and terrible. "This woman has committed crimes against her own blood," the elder declared. "Sexual assault, fraud, document forgery, child custody fraud, inheritance theft." He pointed at Kemi like a curse. "These are not family disputes. These are crimes. The children belong with their mother," another elder proclaimed. "By blood and by law. Amara Okonkwo is their mother. That is the truth we have heard today." "And Kemi Okafor," the elder continued coldly, "you will surrender custody immediately. You will face criminal charges. Justice will be served." The community erupted, but this time the noise was righteous, angry. Finally, the truth had found its voice and the community was listening. The twins were asleep in Kemi's house when Amara entered their room one last time. She looked at their sleeping faces that looked like her face, their mouths open slightly. Bodies covered with blankets that suddenly felt like chains, not comfort. She lifted them gently into her arms. They stirred, one eye opened, then two. "Mama?" Zainab whispered, her lip trembling as recognition dawned. "Mama!" Zain cried, reaching for her face. "Mama! Mama's here!" Amara couldn't breathe through her tears. She held them against her heart, that broken heart that was finally healing. She repeated their names like incantations, like prayers, like the most sacred sounds she'd ever made. "Yes, babies. Mama's here. Mama will never leave again. I promise. Never again." The months that followed felt like redemption. Custody papers were signed. Kemi was charged criminally fraud, document forgery, sexual facilitation, everything. Her assets were frozen. The family inheritance, what Kemi had stolen from the twins, was restored. Chike confessed to everything. He faced his own charges, but the court recognized him as a victim of coercion. He took a path toward genuine redemption therapy, accountability, separation from Kemi. The community, seeing his genuine repentance, eventually extended mercy. Not forgiveness mercy. There was a difference. 3 months after that unforgettable night, Amara walked through the village hand in hand with her children. Her parents' house was exactly as she remembered it, but now it was filled with children's laughter. Aunts came to visit. Neighbors brought gifts. The community that had once condemned her now celebrated her. Aunt Zola found Amara in the garden, hands in the soil, planting flowers with the twins. "I knew," Aunt Zola said, settling beside her. "I always knew the truth would come out. But you, the way you stood up when everyone was against you, that takes a kind of strength that most people never find." Amara smiled, dirt under her fingernails, peace on her face. "It wasn't strength at first," she said honestly. "It was anger. It was refusal. It was a mother protecting her babies. But somewhere along the way, those things became the same thing." The sun rose over the village. Amara walked with her children, one in each hand. Zainab pointed at birds. Zain sang a song his mother had taught him. And Amara, the woman who'd been assaulted and gaslit and stripped of her own narrative, who'd spent years in psychological prison, who'd refused to accept that her story would end in loss. She was finally home. The truth hadn't just freed her, it had restored her to herself. A final message. Amara's story teaches us something the world doesn't want us to know. Truth doesn't arrive quickly. Justice doesn't come easily, but truth is patient. And when it finally breaks through, it destroys everything built on lies. It wasn't just a DNA test. It was a mother's refusal to accept the narrative that made her a villain. It was a woman who, even when the whole community turned against her, kept searching for proof of what she knew in her bones. Kemi's crime wasn't just theft, it was psychological warfare. It was making Amara complicit in her own victimization. And the only weapon against that kind of evil is the complete, unrelenting pursuit of truth, no matter how painful. If you know someone trapped in a false narrative about themselves, share Amara's story. If you've been made to believe a lie about your own life, remember, the truth always comes back. And when it does, it tears down everything built on falsehood. Because there is no power, not family pressure, not community judgment, not carefully constructed lies that can overcome the simple, undeniable weight of truth. Truth returns. And when it does, it destroys everything that stood against it.